Tesla TSLA stock is a really cool chart that's actually following the general market pretty closely. So I want to look at some money flows here and look at potential targets on Tesla. I've got a megaphone pattern sort of weakly painted onto this target. It's pretty clear what this shape looks like on the S&P. It's less clear where it is on this one because Tesla's just like a little bit wild, and it just throws kind of tails outside of the general market pattern. But well, let's take a look. And this bottoming pattern was a little bit late. Tesla doesn't always move at the same time as the market. It can be a few days late or early. But let's let's look at a couple of things and paint this pattern on Tesla. Which right now I have a bullish pattern. If you've watched several of my videos, I mean, this is the S&P, and this goes back to 2018. This is like the Volmageddon, the 2018 crash, the COVID, right? And we have this red megaphone, and we jumped on top of the red megaphone, right? And so now this should be a bullish entry, and it should be a bullish entry into a topping pattern, which I think is another megaphone. And I'm painting it like this, 1, 2, and they keep getting twice as wide, 3, sort of like this, and then you go to the top, which would be up here and big, and then mega crash, right? And so this is, I mean, perfectly symmetrical, but this is the general idea. And you can see where the targets are in the S&P, and you can see how we bulled up to the top, and we sort of rolled over onto this downtrend, and everyone's calling for a bear market. But I don't think this is a bear market. I think that we just rolled over onto a megaphone topping process, which I think is going to make highs and lows, and things are going to get a little bit crazy. And so I'm trying to paint this. And Tesla, I mean, you just saw, has a similar shape to it as the general market. And I was calling for stocks like just NASDAQ stocks in general to get weaker. And that was a trend. It was a trend for a minute. I mean, if you look at well, it's hard to just tell looking at this chart on dailies, but this last pullback that we had here after we rallied up was a lot weaker than the S&P. Like, the S&P wanted to pull back hard, and the NASDAQ was not so interested in this pullback. So it looks like it's a fake-ish pullback, and it looks like the NASDAQ could start leading the market again, which is not what I was expecting, but it looks like what is happening now. And if you look at the NASDAQ versus the S&P, you can see, here, let's zoom out a little bit. I mean, this is a super, super long trend from like the dot-com crash that's been going on for like 20 years, where the NASDAQ keeps gaining strength over the S&P. And so the NASDAQ is, well, it's kind of growth stocks, like tech and growth, but a lot of the NASDAQ leading stocks are really not growth stocks anymore. I mean, things like Apple and Microsoft and Google, these are like infrastructure kind of stocks at this point. So, I mean, you have like the blue chip leading infrastructure stocks, and you also have a bunch of tech and growth stocks in the NASDAQ. And so I think the tech and growth the ratio has been pulling down. And we haven't tested this trend line very many times, but we just did a big, move down into the trend line and kind of hit it or kind of broke it. It's not clear yet if it's making an actual downward pattern or if it's just testing the trend line. But what I'm calling for here is, I mean, we have a month or two probably on this up move. I mean, assuming that this topping pattern is playing out and we're going to make a new high on the S&P. I'm calling for a new high on the S&P, which nobody's calling for right now because everyone is so bearish on this thing. But yeah, I called the bottoming area pretty well, it looks like. I don't think we're going to make another low here. And now I'm calling for a new high, and I'm calling for a vertical move to a new high. So this is a different trading idea than most people. But just this one move up here on the ratio, I mean, all this needs to do is just kind of flag sideways and whatever. Like, the NASDAQ should probably be gaining strength over the S&P. And like this, that's all we need, is just like a month of kind of sideways or up stuff on this. chart, and then it could continue a down move, and we'll see, you know, on this chart if the NASDAQ holds strength over the S&P or if it starts losing strength over the S&P. Yeah, and I don't really have a good thesis on what it's going to do because of sort of the big blue chip stocks that are leading the market. I mean, Tesla is one of those now as well. So anyway, the NASDAQ looks like it is coming in strong, and this is the pattern I have. The pattern idea and the target is that we've just done a bottoming pattern off this trend, and we've just picked up support on this megaphone. Let's see if the aftermarket trading agrees with that. So far, yeah. Yeah, so we just stabbed this today, and we're holding it, and it looks like it probably will hold. And I think tomorrow is going to begin the move up. And so Tesla, I mean, we got this double bottom on the NASDAQ and on the S&P. On charts like the IWM, we got an uphill W, which is more bullish looking, right? But we do see strength coming back into the NASDAQ, and we're seeing stocks like Tesla and like GameStop starting to rally. So it looks like we might be in for another crazy rally thing. But I'm also watching materials stocks that tend to do well at the end of a credit cycle, and I'm watching things like miners as well and monetary assets, but they don't look like they're moving right now. It looks like the NASDAQ is moving, and so Tesla is really interesting. Although Tesla just made a arbitrary bottom with like no bottoming pattern, and it was really hard to target the downtrend because it has this wild stab through the downtrend. So yeah, anyway, the shape of this pattern I think will play out, but the exact like trend lines are hard to draw on Tesla because it just does some wild stuff. I had a lower target for Tesla around 5 something, which I would have called Tesla up if it came down, you know, to this area, but it rallied right here at whatever it was, 625. So so I think the rally's in, and we'll see if we get any more red candles on Tesla, but it looks like the general markets have already completed the reversal pattern, and it looks like they want to go up. Assuming that my theory is right here and the technicals line up. But in any case, I wanted to draw this cone on Tesla. I have a floating tag around here that I don't know where to put it. I mean, if you drew just peak to peak like I have on the S&P, it looks like this. And somewhere, yeah, like July or something. Yeah, I mean, like this, like 3,000 as a potential target. And obviously, this is not investment advice. These are just ideas that, you know, I like to put out and that I trade off of. But I don't think it's this steep. It could be. I mean, there's definitely resistance in here that Tesla's going to have to get through if it wants to go up. But yeah, I don't know. The top on Tesla, it's just easier to probably look at the S&P and look at the NASDAQ. But I was thinking maybe a line more like this might be what Tesla's actually trying to do. I'm going to target somewhere in here. But that's still an all-time high for Tesla, and it would be an all-time high for the S&P, and maybe an all-time high for the NASDAQ. I don't know if the NAS would be making an all-time high or not. It should be close to one. Right, so this horizontal line is probably not quite horizontal. You can see the peaks are getting a little bit lower. So if we got a bear market rejection, the bear rejection would probably happen in here, like this 11 area is going to be really tough on Tesla, and it's going to want to pull down. So yeah, that's the general idea on how Tesla is relating to the market right now. That's what it looks like. And so I'll watch the NASDAQ and see if it is really leading this thing or not, because I have some other stocks like Alcoa is aluminum, a material stock, you know, and FCX is copper mining material stock, and these are rallying as well. And these are the kind of stocks that don't lead the market, when you're on a bull run, but when you get near a topping process, these start doing really well. And so, I mean, you can see they have started rallying since COVID. These really have started rallying, and the growth kind of stock should rotate out near the top. But again, yeah, the NASDAQ has, it's not all growth. I mean, the big tech the big tech stocks are really infrastructure now. So those can make it to the top. And Tesla is a growth stock, and it is a meme stock. And I guess I should mention the short interest on Tesla, which is, I think in dollar, nominally in dollars, Tesla has the most short interest of any stock. But in terms of percentages, I think it was at like 4 or 5%, which is not very high of market cap or of float. So I wouldn't consider Tesla like a short stock or any of this a short squeeze. I think this is just normal money flows following the general pattern of the market. Whereas stocks like GME has like high short interest, and things like Workhorse have high short interest. So I've been looking at a few stocks like this in terms of like a short squeeze kind of idea. I think Workhorse is a stock that has all of these things combined. Like I think this, and it's sort of like baby Tesla too, because Tesla's the EV market and Workhorse is EVs, but it's electric delivery vans, which is a sector that's not really competing with Tesla. So I think this is a really interesting one, especially when we're looking at Tesla. I've looked at this one a few times in a row here, but it has a similar bubbly pattern to Tesla, and it blew off back in February. And Tesla blew off in February, but then it made a new high. And where was this October-November blow off was here. And Tesla's October-November matched the market, and it was at a new high. So this is not quite the same pattern, but it looks like it's at support. And this one actually did the uphill W pattern at support, which is a good pattern. And so, anyway, I think these kind of stocks that are in NASDAQ are going to start getting money flows again. And I think EV sector looks like they're moving again, which I was thinking like, these all blew off, like they might be weak now and they might not move, but it looks like they are moving. I just did a video on GME. They just got earnings. So it's a similar pattern on things like this. Like GME has the breakout on top of the downtrend. It did the uphill W bottoming pattern. And we just had a earnings miss, so I was thinking there might be an entry on GME that could be a day late or something because of the earnings miss. And on Tesla, I think it could also be a day later than the general markets or so because it was a little late on the bottoming pattern. So I think there may be another good entry into Tesla that comes up. Like if we get another red candle here, that's probably a good entry on Tesla. As well as GME, if we get another red candle here, that's probably a good entry. Because usually when you make these uphill W coils, you want to come down and test the top of it before you take off. So like the GME ideal entry would be around 10, whatever this is, 103 or something like this. And that could come a day late and it could even overextend a little bit because of the earnings miss. But yeah, these are kind of the meme stock things. They're getting volatile and trading again. Like GME had a big pop. Tesla had a pretty good pop here. And so I don't know if we'll get another chance to get into these before they start taking off. I think today or tomorrow is about it. Before this pattern like plays out. Assuming the pattern's correct. I mean, that may not happen. But if it does happen, that's where the entry is. With regards to technical analysis, that's where the entry is. There's a couple other stocks that are doing some similar things that I've been looking at. Fuel Cell is a really cool one that did a really, really tight uphill W right on a support trend line. It's like bouncing right off a downhill trend line with support, and there's a horizontal support area. So I really like this support area, and I really like this technical on Fuel Cell. And energy stocks may run. And this is related to natural gas, which may become more available. So I think Fuel Cell is a cool one. And these are a couple of the meme stocks that I think are pretty interesting. and have similar chart patterns just right now. They just look like they're cool, and there's some different categories. Um, you know, if like if we're gonna do another run of meme stocks, um, TCAT, this is art, just broke out to support, and it looks like it wants to go up. So that's a cool pattern. Syncionics stabbed support on the first bottom, and it's coiling. It hasn't broken out yet. It's dangerous looking, but that one's good. Solvent Upstart are volatile messes right now. I'm not going to get into that. AMC, well, this is not like a... I didn't even look at AMC when I did the GameStop video, which is silly. I don't think I did, but it did the similar thing, a breakout, an uphill W pattern. So that looks very similar. Another similar pattern that probably would run if we get those type of money flows coming in, which we should know tomorrow. I think I looked at these, and if we're doing short, I mean, Tesla's not really a short stock. It has a high nominal short interest, but it doesn't have really a high percentage of float to consider anything that Tesla's doing a short squeeze or anything like that. But there's a whole list of other short stocks that I have here that just the charts are pretty freaking ugly on all of these, but we may get a big reversal bounce on these now, which could be a fun trade. But these are all crazy. Like Beyond Meat, I think, is one of the ones that has the highest short interest, and it has one of the biggest like stabs to the downside. Where even if it's going to continue a downtrend, it could like go 2x or something. So I don't know. I'm talking about like Beyond Meat while I'm looking at Tesla. As Sky Harbor is airplane hangars. This one's kind of wild, but it has really high short interest, and it could squeeze. It's just doing a symmetrical triangle, which, whatever. The technicals on this thing are tricky, but it has very high short interest. This thing could break out. It looks like it wants to do a big move, but it could really go either direction with that kind of technical setup. It doesn't look like much. But anyway, there's high short interest stocks for short squeezes. There's a whole list of these things. If you want to go look these, tickers up, I'll just let you look at them here. I don't want to go through all that stuff on a Tesla video. But anyway, that's the general idea with Tesla, is that the NASDAQ has been losing strength, but I think we'll get a little run here on the NASDAQ strength. And you can see it bouncing a little bit, which doesn't mean much, but just another bounce like this is a few months of NASDAQ strength that could fit the general topping pattern that I have. And then we'll see, like if NASDAQ gets weak after that, we may do completely different stocks that rally on the last big move up. They may switch to like miners and minerals and materials and things like that, which is what I've been calling for, but it hasn't really been playing out like that yet. Looks like we're still doing, NASDAQ and meme stocks. So that's the idea for now. And sorry if you're super bearish at the moment. Like, I called the crap out of this bottom, and I think we're going all the way to a new high in a hurry here. So if you're bearish, take that idea into consideration. And if you're bullish, yeah, I mean, I think we're holding here, and I think we're going. That's what it looks like on the technicals. And I did a video, well, I think it's called S&P targets, where I went back and looked at the Great Depression on the Dow Jones, and it did a topping pattern like this. I mean, you can just see it actually play out. It doesn't look so crazy when you actually just see it. Like, it's happened several times. And yeah, I think that'll do it for Tesla. I don't know if there's anything else to look at, like oil or something, because Tesla's totally unrelated to oil. But I mean, I guess sort of as an inverse thing. But oil's been running, and it's doing crazy stuff right now. And I think a down move in oil could correlate with a big down move in the market. So it's just it's just sitting here for now. So there's no like threat or anything from oil. And all the all the other indicators are pointing up at the moment. The dollar has chilled out, which looks fine and good. It's starting to pull back and just chill. So you don't want the dollar screaming to the upside as a bullet. Like it's not super bearish. Like the market has been bulling while the dollar's been going up. But if it just starts ripping and going high, it's generally not good for the market. You know, gold and silver are just kind of chilling. They're not really breaking out, but you can see an uphill W pattern kind of forming on these two. I mean, these may run. We'll see if gold and silver start running or not, but I don't think they're going to lead. It doesn't look like that. And copper, I already looked at FCX, but copper looks like it's picking up, just sort of picking up a trend, but doesn't look super strong. And yeah, so those are kind of the different sectors. I think the euro dollar future chart I keep looking at every video because the whole story with the Fed raising rates and the inflation and everything else, I think is completely wrong. And the Fed now is saying like, oh, maybe we'll hold off from raising rates, and they're supposed to start tightening later in like September or something like that. But I think none of that is going to happen, and it's totally just this chart. The international bond market trading on the euro dollar futures chart tells you everything that you need to know about interest rates and inflation. Because the Fed does not control this chart, and the interest rates that the Fed sets is just wherever this chart is. They literally just set it. They guess where it's going to go, and they set the rates wherever it is. Like the Fed, I don't even know with regards to interest rates, like what they actually do. They just talk about this, like where it is, but they never mention this chart or anything like that. But this is where the bonds are trading internationally, the whole world. The bond market for American, dollars across the world trades here, and you can see the inflation here. And so the Fed was like, oh, we're going to keep raising rates, which was saying like, oh, we're going to break out of here. And we didn't. We didn't break out. Look, we held support. We're going sideways. So when you go sideways, that's usually bullish. And when you make vertical moves, that's usually bearish, just in terms of the bond market. And when you're up here, like near 100, that's like zero interest rates, which we had some zero interest rates here. And everyone's saying inflation, and we didn't really get all that much inflation. We got a big supply shock, or like a supply shock, and then a demand shock that was pushing prices up. But the prices, I mean, we got a little bit of inflation, but not much, not as much as people think. And now it looks like it already peaked, and we're going sideways. And so this will be bullish, and we're not going to get more rate hikes. And also the Fed says they're going to start tightening. When? September maybe? Like, if we roll over back to zero interest rate area here, the Fed's just going to be like, they're going to have to explain why. They're going to have to make up a story or something about why we're going back down near zero interest rates. And it'll be interesting to hear what they say, but the actual story is the bonds just trade there, and that's where the interest rates actually are, and that's why they're setting them there. And the story they tell will be fun to hear, but like they're usually pretty good at guessing where this chart is going to trade. And right now, they just changed their story to like, oh, we're going to hold off from rate hikes. They're saying it's going sideways, and I think it is going sideways. So, I mean, they're usually right, and they're usually good at guessing about where this is going to trade. They did a good job following it, and they were able to raise rates like in time with normal. I mean, they set their rates quarterly or whatever, so if this chart moves fast or changes direction, like sometimes they have to do an emergency rate thing. They come out and announce like, oh, we have to do an emergency rate hike or rate drop or whatever. They haven't had to do that in a while. They've been doing it pretty well, guessing where it's going to trade correctly, announcing where it's going to go correctly, setting the rates, and that's where we are. That's just where we are now. And so, yeah, that's what they're saying now. It's like, oh, we're going to hold off and see what it does. So, yeah, it's just going to go sideways. But anyway, that's bullish. And this rip to the upside was the COVID crash. And so if we go sideways for a month or two and then we rip to the upside, heads up, because that lines up perfectly with the general market pattern that I have here. Is we should be bullish for a month or two, and then we might get a big rip to the downside. So that might correlate with going sideways a bit on interest rates and then going back to zero, or even ripping to the upside and breaking out after that. Could be a down move. So that chart's really important, and that tells you about interest rates. And we'll see if we're going to go into actually go into inflation or not, because we are not seeing inflation right now. That's actually a really small interest rate area, and it just keeps consolidating closer to zero. Anyway, that's the story, and that's where Tesla is relative to the general market, following the pattern just like pretty well. So yeah, it's just like a more volatile version of the general market pattern, except that Tesla tends to pull down less than the general market, and it tends to rally higher than the general market. Or that's been the trend for a while. And the NASDAQ is similar, just in general. But yeah, I've tried to short Tesla a couple times, and it's like I was shorting Tesla a little bit back here, and it's just kind of annoying trying to short Tesla, and it's not really. It still has a lot of strength. So, I mean, the numbers look insane. Like it's gonna go over 1,000, or I mean, it could even be steeper than this. I could go. Who knows? Who knows where this thing could go in like a month? It could be like I would not even be surprised if it was at like 2,000. 3,000 would be surprising, but it's inside of the trading pattern that I have. Like I mean, 3,000 is not outside of the chart that I'm staring at. So, I mean, that number would sound insane, but I mean, every peak that we've hit in Tesla has been a number that sounds insane so far. Anyway, I know that everyone's super bearish, but I think we're going to get a new high before we start coming down again. And that's where we are. So, happy trading, not investment advice. Please smash the like button. And yeah, have a fun trading day. Tomorrow might be a really interesting trading day where a lot of things kind of go in a direction to the upside that people don't expect. We'll see what we get. Yeah, cheers.